My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast, where every episode I'll bring you an interview with a member of the fishing community, and they'll be sharing their faith stories and fishing memories with you. I'm your host, Cam Steele. Hey y'all. Whoa. Hey y'all. Sorry about that. Been playing around with some effects lately, and forgot to turn it off. But yeah. Welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm coming to you newly energized. You may have noticed that there hasn't been much content coming from me lately on Instagram and in the groups. And some of you may know that I was in a pretty substantial slump, physically, mentally, emotionally, and especially spiritually. Well, there have been quite a few things lately that have contributed in pulling me out of that slump, including the conversation in this episode where I had a roundtable discussion with a few of your favorite fishing podcasters, talking about why they got started and why they keep going, and if and how that has changed as their podcast has progressed. So we'll be talking about that with Armando Sola from Bass, Kayak, and Brews Podcast, and Dan Perry from The Reel Down, both on Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, Josh Carter from the One Objective Bass Fishing Podcast, and Paul Roberts from the Bass and Brews Podcast. We're also going to revisit a mistake that I didn't learn from, but think I have now learned from my mistake. Talk about my local tackle shop in the product spotlight, and we'll talk about the frenzy around the hunt for the world record tarpon on the fly in Whatcha Read'N. I know that is a lot to get to, and this is going to be a bit of a longer episode, so I will try to keep the housekeeping quick. I did get to take the kayak out to a new place and got to fish with someone new. Shout out to Ramon from Ramon Outdoors. We went to a local mill pond and did some fishing. He caught a few flyer and I got skunked, but this was something that I desperately needed, to be able to have a day of fishing where I didn't catch anything but still had a great time. And this was a trip that also contributed to pulling me out of that slump. We paddled through the cypress trees where there was this crazy, almost chugging and pulsing sound of some sort of frog or bird, maybe even a bug, though I think it's a little early for the loud kind of bugs. And it might have even been like a chorus of squirrels or something like that. I don't know. But it made it have almost a tropical feel to it. And then the nesting great blue herons made it sound like Jurassic Park at times. But I'm definitely looking forward to going back. Definitely looking forward to getting out with Ramon again. If you like watching YouTube videos, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Ramon Outdoors. And if you are looking for a new podcast, he is a phenomenal storyteller, and he has some phenomenal storytellers on his podcast called Go Outdoors. So he has outdoorsmen talking about their fishing and hunting trips and some of their stories. So make sure you go check that out. But yeah, definitely looking forward to going back there. I might even go without my fishing gear and just paddle the kayak on the kayak trail that they have, which is a good segue because the first thing we're going to jump into is talking about the amount of gear that we take on Learn From My Mistake. So let's take a quick break and jump into it. Whether you're a Ned Rig vet or a finesse fishing noob like me, Jade's Jigs is your source for high quality finesse jigs that raise the bar by being lead free. Using a tin bismuth alloy not only makes Jade's Jigs eco-friendly, it also makes the jig lighter so you get the same profile with less weight for the fish to feel. Check out jadesjigs.com, that's JADESJIGS.com, to see their full lineup of jigs, styles, and colors. And since you're a Faith and Fishing listener, you can save 10% on your order by using promo code FNF10 at checkout. Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle in Greensboro, North Carolina offers a wide range of products and services designed to help protect the environment and enhance the time people spend enjoying the outdoors. With an expansive year-round inventory of kayaks, SUPs, bikes, kayak fishing accessories, paddling clothing, biking accessories, and more, Get Outdoors has established itself as one of the top paddle sports and biking shops in the Southeast. They also offer a wide range of kayak safety and technique courses to get you comfortable in your new boat. They'll even get it rigged up for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check them out at shopgetoutdoors.com. Back in Season 2, Episode 22, the Learn From My Mistakes segment talked about taking too much gear. Well, we are going to revisit that this time because I did not learn from my own mistake when it came to how much gear I was bringing. As a matter of fact, the amount of gear I took went the other direction. It kept growing and growing until I ended up losing a rod and having a rough day on the water a little while ago because I had way too much stuff. And that's not even to mention that my kayak ended up being hard to paddle and hard to maneuver because of the weight in the back hatch. So I started downsizing. I sold a few rods and combos that I really barely used, and a few other things. And this last trip, partly because I had sold some stuff and partly because I knew I was going to be maneuvering amongst the cypress trees, I brought a lot less than normal. I still brought a lot, but I took less than half of the rods I normally do, and I cut down on tackle, which means I cut down on weight, and that made a big difference in how I was able to enjoy the trip. I definitely have learned from my mistake now, though, and I hope that you don't have to get to the point that I did to learn the hard way too. Now let's take another quick break and turn on the product spotlight. If you're looking for a photographer in and around the Raleigh, North Carolina area, the one I recommend you go with is Summer DeSalvo. Whether you're looking for family portraits, senior pictures, or business headshots, Summer's got your back. She's done family portraits for us and even a kayak photo shoot for me, and I have to say she's really fun to work with, goes above and beyond to get her shot, has a really fast turnaround time, and most importantly, takes amazing pictures. Check out her portfolio and pricing in the All Things Faith and Fishing link in the show notes, or go straight there at summerdesalvophotography.mypixiesite.com. That's Summer DISALVO photography.mypixiesет.com. Savior Outdoors gives me confidence that no matter what happens, what I take on the water is coming back home with me. With retrieval devices for fishing rods, bow fishing bows, action cams, and even one that can be attached to your other gear, they've got your whole arsenal covered. When one of these devices goes in the drink, it releases a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back, and the pressure-sensitive filter means that you don't have to worry about rain or dips in the water while landing a fish. At SaviorOutdoors.com, that's SAVUR Outdoors.com, you can use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% and try them for yourself. This time on the product spotlight, we're going to do it just a little bit different, and we're not going to talk about a specific product, but we're going to talk about a business. So you have heard me talk about them a few times before, and I'm talking about Outhouse Tackle in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a small tackle shop, but they have a big selection of Zoom, Big Bite baits, Spro, Z-Man, Rapala, missile baits, Big Show baits, Lose, Ducket, and much, much more. The main reason I choose Outhouse Tackle over Bass Pro and Cabela's, both of which I have in my area, isn't necessarily the selection, though they do have some things that I can't get there. The main reason is the atmosphere. It's the kind of place you would go to with your grandpa when you were little and sit and listen to the fishing stories. This is the kind of place that you go pick up your live bait and your Zebco combo before you go out for panfish or crappie, or even where you get your new Lose reel or Spro crankbaits before your next bass tournament. No matter where you are in your fishing journey, Outhouse Tackle has you covered. Jerry, the owner, is a great guy, and he's full of fishing stories, and he's a lot of fun to talk fishing with. The only warning that I do have is be ready for Gus the shop dog's bark when the cash register goes off. So make sure you go check them out. The website will be in the show notes. Their online shop isn't quite up yet, but it will at least get you a chance to get familiar with them before you go down and see them. Now let's jump into Whatcha Read'N, presented by Quail Ridge Books, Raleigh, North Carolina's trusted community bookstore. As always, Whatcha Read'N is brought to you by Quail Ridge Books, which, if you have not checked them out, make sure you do. If you are listening to this on the day it comes out, keep in mind that new books are released on Tuesdays, so go check out what came out today. This time, we're talking about Lords of the Fly by Monte Burke and published by Pegasus Books. Monte Burke has written a lot of sports books, and they are really, really well written. This one was brought to my attention by previous guest Jeff Jones, who has a fly fishing podcast called The Brackish Fly, which is awesome. So make sure you go check that out. But I picked this book up and it is phenomenal. It covers the tarpon fly fishing scene in, I hope I'm saying this right, Homosassa, Florida in the late 70s and early 80s, specifically the race for the world record tarpon on the fly. It follows the stories of legends like Tom Evans and Lefty Cray and many, many more. The record would get broken regularly, and the anglers would spend time together, even party together, then go compete the next day trying to break that record. This book is one of the best collections of fishing stories out there, and Monte Burke does such a good job of sharing those stories. You can get your copy at quailridgebooks.com/faithnfishn. Now, let's jump into this conversation with some of your favorite podcasters. With 30 years of experience of handcrafting lures under his belt, Mr. B of Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality spinnerbaits, buzzbaits, jigs, underspins, swim blades, and more right here in the U.S. All of his skirts are hand-tied, and all of his baits feature a baked-on powder paint, all metal components, and only Owner and Gamakatsu hooks. All of his baits come in a variety of colors, and if you purchase a bait in the Battle Shad color, 30% of the proceeds go to the Wounded Warrior Project. To see the quality for yourself, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, to place your order and use promo code FAITH, fish, POD 1X10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. All right. So this episode, we're going to be doing things a little different. We have a roundtable discussion. We've got some voices that you're going to be very familiar with. Not only have most of them been on the show before, but you've probably, if you're listening to my show, you're probably listening to theirs too. So we've got a few different fishing podcasters. We're going to be talking about why it is that we do what we do. So we've got, y'all remember Armando Sola from the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. We've got Josh Carter, an OG from over on the One Objective podcast, and Mr. Dan Perry from the Reel Down over on the Paddle and Fin podcast network. And we may be joined by another one as well, but y'all,
what's going on? I appreciate the invite to the show tonight.
Yeah, definitely honored to be here in this roundtable with these guys.
Thanks, Ken.
Absolutely. So I'll be forthcoming. I'm not phenomenal at running a conversation, so I am interested to see how it goes with so many of us on here. But yeah, so Armando, we'll start with you and just kind of for our listeners who haven't heard, tell us what your show is all about.
Well, I got, first, my name is Armando Sola, and then I have the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network, runs every Tuesday. And basically, it's just fun conversation. It's really what the title is. Just being my guest, crack open a beer, and talk about kayak fishing. Sometimes I'll have a tournament angler. Sometimes I'll just have a weekend warrior that likes to go fishing and likes to talk about kayak fishing. Sometimes I have a content creator. So I'm not really just strict on one specific, group or the other. It's just anybody that wants to talk kayak fishing is always welcome to come to the podcast. A lot of times, it's going to be either we're going to have a content creator. We're going to be talking about, the content creation scene when it relates to kayak fishing. When I have a tournament angler, we'll talk about their tournaments and how the tournament scene is progressing and moving forward and where can it go. And when I have somebody that just loves kayak fishing, it's not really into social media or tournaments, so we just have conversation about you having a campfire, when you're out there fishing and camping.
Awesome. And what about you, Dan?
Dan Perry. Also on Paddle and Fin with one of our mini shows. Me and Jimmy Skinner do the Reel Down. It's just tournament kayak fishing. We have it's a show where we usually almost every week, highlight 3 kayak anglers who compete in a tournament who got top 3. And we do that every week. Give guys from across the country, either whether it's grassroots or national, give them a chance to shine. Been doing that. Took a little break, but been doing it almost 3 years now. I think right at 3 years, something like that.
Awesome. And Josh?
I'm Josh Carter with One Objective. We've been doing this for probably, we'll say about 6 years now. We've been doing podcast shows. We started out doing podcast as I actually did a podcast with another guy, Brian Carter from the Basscast. And we did it for a little while. Just it wasn't going, like he was big into tournament news, like local tournament news and stuff like that. And just he had a great show, just wasn't going where I wanted it to go. So me and James, we went to high school together, fished together for many years, tournaments and stuff like that. So it only seemed right to call him like, look, dude, let's do a podcast show. We started out very small, very basic. Sound sucked for the first year, I'd say, and you think you got it figured out, then it sucks again for a while, but finally I think we got it. But anyways, we just wanted to do this to inform people, on it started out just bass fishing in general. And then we had a good friend of ours, Casey Reed, on, and he got talking about kayak fishing. And I was like, well, I got to try this. And we tried it, fell in love with it, sold our bass boats, just went deep into kayak fishing. And we've been fortunate enough and blessed that the Lord opened enough doors for us to be able to do this full time, not just with the podcast, but to be able to build a brand around One Objective, and do everything when it comes to kayak and bass boat side and all that. And this is where we're at right now. We've been blessed for sure.
Absolutely. So what I want to start off with is I want to know, what was your why whenever you started out? So like not only why did you start the podcast, but why was it that you were doing it once you got started? So I guess let's start with Dan this time.
Yeah. So I have a 5-year-old, so I just don't get to fish as much as I want to, being a dad to me is number one. And so I was just sitting here at the house. And I was like, man, I want to go fishing. I can't go fishing all the time like I want to. And I'm just generally one of those people where I am 100% ate up with fishing all the time, whether it's podcast or help running trails or whatever else or anything or actually fishing. I just need to have my mind on something and just give me a chance. Other people want to talk about fishing? Sure. Heck yeah, I'll do it. So, I'd messaged Brian, and whenever a spot came up on the Reel Down at that time, it was Brad Hicks left. He was doing it with Sam Jones. And then Brad Hicks left to do the review show, product show. And
Final Cast.
Yeah, Final Cast area. And another show on Paddle and Fin that you can watch. So I got on there with him, and I got to talk kayak fishing and fishing with people. And man, I have learned so much. So it started off as me just wanting to talk fishing and learn more, and really kind of not only that, but it also got the side of just being able to highlight people from all over the country. I mean, our sport is growing so fast, and just kind of giving everybody their due whenever they win a tournament, and just trying to be, no matter what trail it is, KBF Hobie or bass, local, just giving people a little bit of time shine and getting the juice from them, taking it from them. So, so that was it.
For sure. And Josh, you kind of already hit yours, but was there anything you wanted to expand on?
I'm kind of like Dan said, he wanted to learn more. He wanted to be able to talk fishing. And I know, like, when me and James were growing up, all you basically had was Bassmasters on Saturday mornings, and you had Bassmaster magazine, or Bassin or whatever. But you didn't have all these shows where they sit down and talk, and YouTube wasn't big then when I was growing up, I sound like an old person when I say that, but
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, but YouTube wasn't there. And granted, when we started this, YouTube really wasn't even on our mind either. But so we wanted to be able to get on there and talk bass fishing, and you can't learn it from, you can learn it from other guys, local guys and all that, but a lot of local guys don't want to give the juice. You know what I mean? They don't. We've had a couple on, and I can tell, I knew these guys, I knew how they fished, and it was just like they were blowing smoke. You know what I mean? So me and James, we got to get pros on, this is what we need to do. So, we just shot for the stars, man, and started getting Bassmaster pros on, FLW pros on, talking about their events also, but doing an in-depth segment to where you're breaking down each technique that they're doing. So if they got 3 different techniques, you break it down from the reel, rod, lure, all that stuff. So it helped everybody listening to the show and us, because I'm taking notes too, on how they do this stuff and their mindset and how they make these changes and why they do it, and I've learned a lot from it. As all of us that do these podcast shows and that listen, we learn so much. So that was basically the reason why I wanted to get the juice from the guys that do it for a living, and then it just kind of expanded into the kayaking side. And now we kind of get everybody, and try to give everybody recognition for big tournament wins or just tournament fishing or just fishing in general.
For sure. What about you, Armando?
Same thing, kind of really what Josh just mentioned. If I can expand on it, I'd say, it's my buddy of mine got me into kayak fishing. We used to fish out of his Pelican, little sit-in kayak. You get usually like a Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods and stuff like that. And, I immediately got, pun intended, hooked into this. But he was more like, throw a spinnerbait and all that. He was not like knowledgeable on it. It's just every once in a while. Then, he got 2 kids and decided he was going to get a boat because kids are young and, more of a boat is better to bring the family and stuff like that. So really the only person that I knew that did kayak fishing just wasn't doing it anymore. So I was like, how do I learn? And I used to watch a lot of Fluke Master, which Gene Jensen is, to me, helped me out a lot as far as starting, but there's only so much you can get. And I thought, man, if I can have some of this guys, girls that know how to do this come up and talk to. Back when I started, the tournament scene wasn't as big as it is now. And that was also kind of intimidating going, take part in a tournament where I have no idea what I'm doing. At that point, I just barely just bought my kayak. So I got the idea listening to podcasts from my wife, who loves to listen to true crime podcasts. For whatever reason, murder relaxes her,
Women, women love that stuff, man.
Yeah, I know. It is. So that's how I learned that podcast was a thing. So I figured, let me see if there's podcasts for fishing. And I think Crank and Cast was the first one that I listened to. Then I thought maybe there's one specifically for kayak bass fishing. And I think KBN and Paddle and Fin were the 2 that came up. So I figured, let me, maybe I can start mine. And Dark Waters, Josh Smith with Dark Waters. So I posted it on Instagram that I was going to start a podcast to see if that kind of I put myself out there because I knew if I just left it inside my brain, I wasn't going to do it. So I needed something to pressure myself into doing it. And I've told this story many a times, probably on this same podcast with you previous time I was here. But Josh Smith, who I'd never met in my life, saw my post, and about 2 weeks later, just kind of messaged me directly and was just, using strong words, but just basically, put your big boy pants on and start doing this. Say you're going to do it. And I've never met Josh Smith in my life. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm being bullied into doing this. But to this day, I love Josh Smith, and he's really been pretty much one of the main reasons why I started doing this. So I started doing it, and then I started just kind of want to have fun conversations. Then I figured, I'll do also a kayak fishing 101, which is to get the pros and to talk about techniques, just like Josh mentioned. So I had 2 episodes. One was just fun conversations and the life of tournament angler or content creator, and the other one was learn how to kayak fish. And I love doing the second one because even though I was using it as an excuse to put the show out there, I really didn't care if anybody listened to that one. I just wanted them to tell me, and I could have it recorded. I got my personal best listening to Dan Perry the first time he was on my show on how to fish on deep ledges. And listening, the only, and I'm not kidding, the only episode that I've listened to out of the ones that I recorded was the one I did with Dan Perry. Usually I just recorded it. Now I do, when I do the editing, I listen to it. But to sit down and enjoy it, the only one was Dan Perry. And I was driving to Sam Rabin, and I know I'm making this story way longer than the other guy, so I apologize. And I figured, I just recorded one with Dan. Let me listen to it and kind of put it in practice. And sure enough, I got my personal best. So, kind of paid for itself right there.
Yeah.
I hear you. And I guess I should briefly kind of throw mine out there too. So I had a few different reasons that I started. One, my wife is in her spare time, she's a potter, and she would go out to the shed, her studio, and throw pots and trim bowls and handle mugs and all that stuff. And I just wanted something to do while she was out doing that. That was one reason. And the other reason was this was the kind of content that I thought would be a really awesome thing to have, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And it was I think it was Gene Jensen that said, if there's content out there that you want to see and you can't find it, it's on you to make it. So I decided to jump into it. And I will say, I say this a lot. It was you, Josh, actually, who, if it hadn't been for you, I would not have stuck it out as long as I did. Because you told me, you were the first person I interviewed, and you told me, give it a year. Before you make any decisions on whether you want to stick it out or not, give it a year. Mm-hmm. Because you don't get any kind of traction in that first year. And that was the best advice I got. So thank you for that. But yeah, so that was kind of my why in terms of why start it. And I'm kind of at this point where I'm trying to figure out what my why in terms of keeping going is. So, I had a very, very brief stint in sales, where, the only way you make it through a job in sales is remembering your why. And, so that kind of resonated with me, and I brought it along with the rest of my life. And every time I'm doing something, I'm trying to remember, what is my why? Why am I doing this? Whenever I'm at work, what's my why? My why is bringing a paycheck home to my wife and my son, providing for them, so I'm at that point now where I'm trying to find what is my why of this podcast. And I'm interested to know what your whys are. So, I guess, Josh, since you've been doing this the longest, what is your why on how you're continuing it? How has it changed from what it was as?
Now it's the outreach that we get, like the weekly or daily emails or Facebook comments that we get of, hey, you really helped me with this, or we'll get questions on, how do I do this? How do I rig this kayak? How do I, in this situation, what type of lure do I throw? We get a lot of that. And I always try to break it down, but it also gives me ideas for shows, which I have got a list because we haven't done a show in a while now, just with
like March 2nd, man, get together.
Yeah, I swear, man, has it really been March 2nd?
I think so. Like every day, because I listen to podcasts while I work on the computer all day, and I keep going to y'all's, and there's not a new show. I think it's like March 2nd or 9th, one of the two. I'm not trying to call you out.
Oh no, man, it's all right. Hey,
sure sounds like you are.
Yeah, it's you know what that is? That's motivation. That's like, Josh, you need to get back up on a horse and get going.
I want to hear your next show, man.
Yeah, so
and Finn and put 2 out every day.
Yeah, I can. I'll tell you what, man. I give it to you guys on Paddle and Fin, and me and James talked about this before. You guys are like machines. Like I don't even have that much to talk about. Like I don't even know. I don't know.
It's quantity over quality all the time.
But like for us, just to keep going, when you get the, hey man, this really helped me out, or this, I really enjoyed this, and also I just enjoy talking. I'm a talker. You know what I mean? If I go to the boat ramp and I see dudes there, especially if my wife and kids go, and I see another boat come in, and I'm going to talk to them, like, oh gosh, We're going to be here for a while, but that's just me. I like to go out there and talk to people. I love talking fishing. And we love helping, and to see where this has gone, it's really hard to grow something. Me and James was actually talking about this the other day. It's really hard to grow something to this point and just stop doing it. It's not, we want to keep doing it just because we've been doing it, but it's when you build your brand, when your whole entire company was built off of a podcast show, you got to remember where you came from and keep going to that, because that's these people, when you're doing this fishing, that's just like for us getting back into kayak tournament fishing this year. When you're living that life of kayak tournaments, it's easier for when you get on there to talk fishing, that people can kind of say, hey, I can reason with this guy. I can see what he's talking about, or he is fishing tournaments. If you go on there and, anybody can go on there and shoot a YouTube video on how to catch fish off a spinnerbait or how to do this or do that. But if you don't have any kind of showing that you are doing this, you know what I mean? Like you are living this life or whatever, it's hard to continue it. You know what I mean? So, I think that's some of it too. Just, like we're extending out to everything and just trying to keep this going in every avenue, and the way we do it full time now, you kind of got to, it's a whole marketing deal now. You know what I mean? Like this is our marketing side of doing it, our products, also our YouTube's our marketing side. But to get down to the nitty gritty, man, it's like
you're writing your tournaments off as like marketing expenses on your taxes.
Basically, I have to, because I'm not winning no money right now. So
that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, man.
No, you're fine. But to get down back to the main question, we still enjoy helping people. You know what I mean? I still enjoy the getting someone out on the water and they're saying, man, I caught a fish because of this, or I got my kayak rigged out and it is perfect because of this. That's the stuff that we like. That's the stuff we love, helping people. That's why we do it.
Absolutely. So that's awesome. Dan, let's go ahead and crack open that can of worms.
Well, I mean,
what's your why? Why have you come back, and why are you continuing?
Well, first I took a break for a little bit because it is difficult. On the difficult part of being on Paddle and Fin is you kind of have a lane, except for Armando. He does whatever he wants to, which is awesome. But everybody, like the Noob Show, they have a specific deal. The Final Cast has a specific deal. And the Reel Down, we do tournaments. So we have a very small lane that we stay in, and if you do that for 2.5 years, that lane it gets a little bit tight over time, because you can only hear somebody, especially, it's kind of mean to say, but some people just get lucky and win tournaments, and they do it. It happens nationally and locally, and some people are really bad at being on a podcast. I mean, the regular stuff, but doing a tournament show is a very small lane. So over time, I said, well, I'm going to start a different show, and then some couple other, like I've had people cuss me out and call me all kind of names on a live stream, and every if you do a podcast long enough, you're going to say something ignorant, and some people are going to get upset, and that's totally fair. And I'm sure I deserved it. And there's actually one really big kayak angler. I apologized to him twice after saying, I said something small like, oh yeah, that guy, something like that, something real small, because everybody knows he's so good. And then he took it as, oh, I can't believe you'd say that, and messaged me, and I apologized twice. I was like, you can listen to it again. I was literally kidding. And he's like, you're dead to me, and whatever else. Hey man, I manned up. I apologized twice for a comment that I thought was absolutely couldn't even take it any other way but joking.
Yeah.
And I won't say who it is. He lives up in the Northeast. I'll say that. And but it's a grind doing a podcast every week. You're not really getting paid from it. There's no money. Sorry if you're wanting to get into podcasting. unless you're Josh and you sell products along with it, there's no money in it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But you do it for long enough in small lane. I just felt like doing something else. And a couple of the other hosts, I started a new show for a week. I said, I won't do anything you've done in the last 6 months. And they didn't like it. They thought I was getting in their lane. And I let it upset me so much that I said, well, I'm going to take a break. Like, I said the stuff about other people because I can take stuff from the outside. That's fine. But whenever your friends, people that you feel like you're a part of the team, whenever they come down on you, and I jumped through hoops to not get in their lane, and they still thought I was in their lane, even though I thought we were all doing it as a team. It took a lot of the fun out of it for me. So I took a break. Then Jimmy had some stuff going on. I think I was going 4 months. Jimmy asked me to fill in for him for a little while, so I did that, and boom. Now they pulled me back in, so I'm back doing it. But I haven't lost the love of doing it and why I do it or why I started. I get to talk fishing, and that's awesome. Man. I get to squeeze people of that juice as much as I can. There's not really many. I get a couple of sponsors that help out a little bit. I'm sure from the podcast, not from my fishing. A couple of local trophies. They're not the sponsors aren't saying, hey, you're tearing up them grassroots clubs. Yeah, hey, sign on with us, buddy. No, it's from the podcast. There is a little bit of benefit from it. Yeah. I mean, that's like a small thing from it, but believe me, it's small. But so yeah, I still do it for the love of it. Just giving people a chance to shine, and getting talk fishing. That's why I'm back.
Absolutely. And Armando, I'm interested to hear your impression.
I have to give you my version of why Dan quit, because it's actually part of it is my fault.
It is.
I was recording, so Dan
he told me it wasn't Armando. He told me something, and then that really.
You already said. So Dan is going to bring a new segment on Paddle and Fit, which as soon as I heard it, I was like, I don't mind it, but I know somebody's not going to be happy about this. As soon as I heard it, like, this should have been brought up differently. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to support Dan. That's what he wants to do. If other people have a problem with it, I can't help it. Dan wants to do it, so I'm supporting him. So I told Dan, come up to my show. We'll, promote yours, and next week, you'll start. You'll debut your show. So Dan comes up. We record. When we finish recording, I said, hey, by the way, did you saw, of all places, the post that so-and-so made on KBN group page? I think he's talking about you. And he's like, and I thought that he already read the post because everybody in Paddle and Fin had already read the post. So I figured, what's your thoughts on it? And Dan was like, what do you mean? And as soon as Dan said, what post are you talking about? Like, crap. I'm like, nah, never mind. But it's like, no, tell me. And I said, oh, well, you're going to find out anyway. So I told him this post, and I showed him the post. And Dan, that was after we recorded. Dan just blew up right in front of me. Like, Dan was like, I'm done. And there was a lot of, other words come up. And I felt guilty because here I am promoting his show that's never going to air now and never did. And so I was like, do I even post this show now? Because it's not going to happen. So what's the point? But I was like, we already recorded. Let's post it. And I felt super guilty because, like, if I would have kept my big mouth shut, then maybe Dan finds out in another way that's more organic, and things don't blow up the way they did. So I felt bad
it would have happened no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, but when Dan came back, I was relieved because I was like, man, kind of like saved myself from, feeling guilty that he left because of not something I said, but something that I repeated. I
had to learn my lesson to not let other people take, sour you on something that you love to do. So I mean I'm a grown man. I learn lessons every day, and that was one I needed to learn or relearn
Well, let me I don't want to cut you short real quick, Armando. And I don't want to cut into what your response is for for the comment here, but
go ahead, man.
something I've learned with podcasting, getting into this. Our first year was we were all to ourselves. We had our listeners, but once you started getting that second year, when people really start figuring out what you're doing and who you are, people start getting a little more competitive. People start getting a little more competitive, and they want that first interview. They want that. I mean, when we did interviews at the Bassmasters Classic, you ought to see the media when that guy comes back behind stage after he weighed his big fish, and everybody's rushing up here because they want to get that interview first. You know what I mean? And it was getting kind of like that with the podcast thing. We had several guys that just came in, just started up a podcast. I'm not going to name their names, but as soon as no, it wasn't you guys. For sure, it wasn't you guys. But it was getting to the point where they were fighting to get the interview. They were cutting us off from the interview. We already had it set up, so they would set it up about an hour or 30 minutes before our show and hold them. You know what I mean? And then it was cutting into our time, and it just kept going like that. So finally, we got to a point where we was like, you know what? I don't care no more. I'm not doing this competing thing. I'm not trying to be the first to get this interview. I just want to talk fishing. You know what I mean? And when you get to that point in the show and you just don't care what no one else says and you go in there and do your show, it's a lot easier. You know what I mean? I don't worry about what nobody says anymore or who gets the first interview. I just want to go talk fishing. And once you get that, your show goes so much smoother. You know what I mean? There is no, because it don't matter if you shoot your show today and I shot my show at the same time and another guy shot his show at the same time, the listeners don't care. Yeah. You might not get that live. If you're going live, you might not get the live showing like you would like because everybody's split up everywhere. But in the end, they're all going to they're going to listen to each show. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. Everybody's going to hear the same thing. So I just, word advice after doing this for a while is just do your thing and don't even worry about it. Don't try to compete for that interview. It's not worth it. It will drive you nuts trying to do it.
We had the same thing with on the Reel Down. We were kind of competing in time slot with KBN, and we ended up talking to those guys and getting our times figured out so we didn't overlap. So if both wanted to do a live, so I mean, but then there was Butcher and and Dark Waters, and I mean, for a while there was a lot of other people doing it too. So everybody was fighting over the same. Well, who won this week? Who's the second you see who win on the live stream? Boom, you're texting them, and that's why we didn't do live anymore because that wasn't really our bag, I guess. Anyway, so it didn't matter. So we kind of backed off and did our own thing too. But yeah, we had the same thing there.
Yeah.
And Cam, before, because I just noticed this show is going to go from like an hour show to a 3-hour show.
Sorry, guys.
So let me answer the question now. Not you, Shots. It's not you. You'll see.
Chill out, Armando. Hey, don't be like
Let me answer
Armando.
the question because this is going to be my last thing I'm going to say in the podcast now, probably. When I started, I really wanted to bring tournament anglers. That's the main thing that I wanted to do. There's no way, like the whole year, that I kept trying and trying. I couldn't get it because it was just one objective, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. Dan Perry with the Reel Down, KBN, Josh Smith, and then that's when I started going to let me try content creators. Turns out, for the growth of the podcast. You bring a content creator to your podcast, might get twice the listeners that you're gonna get from a tournament angler. And that's what I'm saying. Bringing the content creators is not a bad idea. All of my popular shows has been with content creators because the content creator may have a following of 100,000, right? You bring him in, he reposted it, and those are gonna be like, oh, let me see what this guy or this girl said on Bass, Kayak, and Beers. Never heard about this podcast. You bring a tournament angler. It's only, the tournament scene, even though it's growing, it's such a really small percentage.
It's at the very top
people,
of the pyramid.
Yes, it's like a 1%. You bring a content creator, it's crazy the difference you get in audience. Now, having said that, I really rather have a tournament angler because that's what the whole thing is about. But I like to mix it up. Every now and then I was like, I got to bring a content creator, somebody that I respect as well. So I'm not going to bring somebody that I don't respect, or I don't think they're doing any favors to the kayak fishing community with their contents, I'm not going to even ask them to come on. But, I try to mix it in because I was like, sometimes like, I could use a bump in listeners. Let me reach out to this so-and-so, content creator. And it really is that. So that kind of came by accident because I couldn't get anybody from the tournament. My first one was Cody Milton, and it was the day before Ryan Schiller called me to invite me to come to Paddle and Fin. And that was a year after recording the podcast and asking everybody.
All right. I am going to, I have to remind myself I'm part of this podcast. I'm so used to listening to your voices that I'm sitting here listening, not remembering that I'm part of this conversation. But I do want to go ahead and introduce Paul. Welcome. So we got Paul from Bass and Brews. I almost said Bass Kayaks and Beers because we got both of you. But
that's being taken care of by lawyers.
You got a bunch of alcohols up in the podcast tonight, Cam.
We do. How many alcohols are you drinking tonight, Paul?
Oh, not much, man. This is not Bass and Brews. I have to be on my best behavior. So, I don't know what Armando's talking about 3-hour podcast. I think we've only had 2 of those. So, it might be 2 hours and 47 minutes, but won't be 3.
How many? What's the bet? What's the over and under? How many times Paul is going to put up that sign that says "Keep talking, I'm going to pee"? You have to keep going. It's like you can hear the pee in the background, and you're like, "What?"
No. My microphone stays out here.
I'm kidding.
It does not go to the potty with me. I'm not a heathen. I ain't no heathen now. No, I'm not a heathen. Man, I appreciate y'all's patience. Apologize for being late. I had something run over. But I'm here now. And I walk into Armando talking junk about me. I love it. It's great.
Nice to see you, Paul. Miss you.
Same here, buddy.
Paul, what was your why? What was your thought process whenever you got started with Bass and Brews? Because you kind of came into an established podcast there. So what was how did that happen?
All right, so I'll start back in 1998. I'll start there. So it might be 2-hour episode. No, I had, but I got into kayak fishing in December 2020. Before then, doing what I was doing with work and stuff and networking, I had thrown around the idea of doing a podcast, but I didn't prioritize doing it at the time. Get into kayak fishing, and just like everybody else, what do? You go to Apple iTunes, start looking for fishing podcasts, and specifically kayak fishing podcasts. And I find Paddle and Fin and Darkwell, KBN. I find everybody, right? And so I start listening to all these. I start getting Instagram, connecting with people that I enjoy listening to and people that are interesting. And I don't even remember exactly how it started. I think I'd found Jigs and Bigs, which is another long form, kind of like your morning show type podcast. And through there, I started meeting some of the Hooks at Hoodlum guys, and I found Bass and Brews Podcast, which was at the time just Alex. And he was in like season 4, episode 5 total. Like he was in season, he'd done a season of episode. An episode a season. A little inside joke. He was just kind of wasn't committed to it yet. I missed that one. But anyway, doesn't matter. So anyway, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, dude, if you ever need somebody to be on the podcast, you're looking for somebody, you can't get nobody good on, and you just want to fill in, I'm free. We schedule it. I'm at the beach with my family. Internet's bad, doesn't work out. Probably the greatest thing that happened. Ended up rescheduling it for when I'm home. And he records 45 minutes to an hour, and it went like 2.5 hours. And it was just, it was a good podcast, talking fishing, But I was looking to be on podcast, just to talk fishing. That's all I wanted to do. I've got some OCD, ADHD combined. And when you get to talking about fishing, I just, I can't shut up. I want to hear what other people have to say and just talk. And so I was on, I think I was episode 12 or 9 or something. But a few weeks later, he asked me to co-host. And I said, yeah. He actually asked me, hey, man, if you want to be a guest co-host every now and again, I texted him back and said, I'll co-host forever. And that pretty much put me on Bass and Brews and Outs as active Coast Guard. And so after, I think about that would have been July. I think I started in August, and in like November, he was gone. And he left me by myself. And so my whole goal was to just put out an episode a week and roll from there. And that's what we did. And, I pretty much just get guests that most of them are the content creator side, and I do the tournament side. So I like having some tournament folks on there. But the why was I didn't have a why. I just wanted to be on podcasts and talk because it was fun. And I got to talk to other people about fishing. And then there was folks out there that apparently listened to it. And, that was it. And I kind of slid in, got lucky with somebody that thought I was funny. I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty handsome. I'm good on camera. But, more people listen than watch. So I don't know what it is.
It's got to be the accent, man. That's what it is.
You have a face for podcasts, man. That's what it is.
Well, easy now. If I shaved, I could have an OnlyFans page like nobody's business.
I subscribe to that.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
What about now, Paul? How has that why changed, or is there a why now? What is it that keeps you going?
It literally has helped me immerse myself into the kayak fishing industry and meet so many people that I never really thought I would meet, and actually get to talk to them and have conversations, which is in turn put me in touch with people in the fishing industry as a whole. That's kind of, you get on that fanboy side and be like, damn, this is awesome. I get to talk to this person. Exchange text, ask questions. The why now is just to talk fishing. I mean, it's that simple. We all have a story to tell. And when we're doing the fishing podcast, the story is fishing centric, but the story is not fishing. It's how you got to where you are right now. And fishing is a part of that. Fishing is why you're on this podcast, why we're here right now. But it's the rest of the little bits of story that are the most interesting part for listeners. And I like to find those stories. I like to find the stories that are sad. I like to find the stories that are happy. I like to find the stories where I can pick on you about it. It's just the stories of where we are right now. And then we just sprinkle in some fishing on it. I like to meet people. I'm a habitual networker. I love meeting people. I love listening to their story. And this helps accentuate that. It makes me happy. I have a bad day at work and I come here and record a podcast. I feel great. The next morning I wake up feeling refreshed and happy.
I wish I was good at the networking part. Like Jimmy, my co-host, he has like conversations with a lot of people we just had on, and then he becomes friends with them. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not very good at that. I'm kind of a quiet guy though.
I'm right.
Yeah, it's a personality trait. Being like that, I've never met a stranger, and my wife has 7 friends from college, and that's all she has room for in her life. And I make 7 friends, in 4 hours of being outside. So, it's a personality trait. But you can change if you want to change. Just have to want to talk more.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Whenever I asked you, what is it that keeps you going? I thought for sure you were going to say White Claw Surge.
I ain't gonna lie. I haven't drank one in like a week because I broke out like some hives. And I swear it was the White Claw Surge. I'm going to be a little upset if it's that, but we're going to find out. I might try one this weekend. Well, I can't smother. I'll try one Monday. But, yeah, no. It's the folks that we have on and the story that they tell. I mean, to me, that's the most interesting thing. And, what I tell people when I tell them about the podcast and ask them to be on, I said, just have you listened to it? And some say, no, I haven't. I was like, well, you might want to go listen to a little bit of it before you say yes, just to make sure, because it is raw and it's unedited. Whatever says is said, and whatever happens has happened. But I said, we're sitting around a campfire, drinking coffee, a beer, water, whatever, shooting shit, talking fishing. It's that simple.
Absolutely. And so to kind of keep us in that frame of mind, what are y'all aiming towards? And whoever wants to start can start.
Josh, you want to start?
You talking about like for our goals, like where we want to go?
Yeah.
Like,
with the podcast and the brand and all that stuff, like what are y'all aiming towards now?
Goal wise for the podcast, I don't really have a goal wise. Like I don't have we might have like a listener count that I would love to hit for a show. You know what I mean? Like I'd love to be able to get X amount of listeners for a show. You know what I mean? And we try to up that every year. You'll kind of reach that and you keep going. But mainly it's, since we do our stuff live on Facebook and YouTube now, like we have our numbers there, like we'd like to hit, but I mean, as it's going, it's just kind of like everybody else, we're still talking fishing. I don't think you can really take it. You can get all the equipment you want and make sound better and video better and all that and try to make the show look more like a regular talk show, but like when it comes down to it, I mean, I don't think I really have a goal like where I want to see the show in like, say 5 years. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy with where it's at right now. I'm happy with the group of listeners that we have, where the show's at right now. I mean, I would love to be able to have 100, 200,000 listeners, but maybe one day, but like right now, I think it's so much simpler when you keep it like where it's at right now for us. It's kind of small for us. And, but I don't know. I'd like to see our YouTube grow more with the show more than anything. I think Facebook isn't a big deal to me when it comes to viewers and all that. I like to see our YouTube grow more with that. And that way we're reaching everybody on every level, whether it be the show, whether it be teaching people techniques when rigging their kayaks and all that stuff. That's kind of basically where we're moving to now.
Y'all have a great YouTube. I don't know how many times how many times I've watched all your videos,
I really appreciate that. And we try to be in depth as we can, with a lot of stuff. Sometimes we say stupid stuff that we got to go back and answer questions for how we did it or why we said that or but I mean, we try to be in depth. We try to give people a little bit of everything. And now I think this year we're going to kind of move further into getting new people into the sport. Like we were so driven towards the people that were in the sport that they'll kind of watch it for a while and then move off. You know what I mean? Like they'll find other stuff that they want to watch. And so now I think we want to get more people that are new to the sport into it. Guys that just bought a Pelican or just bought an Ascend or whatever, and want to upgrade to a bigger kayak or a different kayak or adding stuff. I mean, I think that's where we want to go now. We want to reach the new people coming in. That's what's going to keep this sport growing and keep the industry growing. Like just what we do with kayak accessories. People ask us, hey man, did you see such and such come out with this product? Man, it's very similar. Yeah, it is. But that's what keeps this industry growing. Like you got to give our consumers options. You know what I mean? Like it's just, that's how it is. That's how this sport is going to keep growing, is having more companies coming in that want to get involved in the kayaking industry. Same thing with a podcast. It's great to have all these different guys doing podcasts. I mean, it gives people options to listen to different stuff and learn so much. And all you guys, y'all got different varieties of shows, and I think it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's great. So, I ain't gonna keep rambling, but yeah, that's just where we're going. We're trying to get the new people in to stay in the sport.
Okay, and Armando, what about you?
Well, to me, I don't really have and I've talked to marketing directors where they tell me, you know what, if you want to make it a business, you have to think of it as a business and all that. And to me, I don't need the money. It would be nice, but I don't do it for that. So that's not my main goal. Maybe I should take it more seriously and at least get something out of it, so I won't spend that much, on tackle and all that. But I mean, honestly, what drives me is, and I've had this just recently. Today I recorded with Eric Siddiqui, right? A guy who's a great tournament angler, but didn't have that signature win, and for the most part, he's been overlooked. And I told him when we talked on the pre-recordings, I want to talk about, you staking the claim and making a statement by winning the national championship. Bassmasters, like, put some damn respect in my name, because I know it's got to be a chip on your shoulder when you've been so consistent all these years, but yet you don't get mentioned. So he was like, yeah, I'll talk about that. So we started recording and all that. And once we've done recording, then I hit the end record. The last thing he told me says, like, my friends told me, the friends that have been on your podcast told me that this was going to be the best podcast conversation that I ever was going to be on, and I was going to love it. And I can tell you right now, it is. And that to me means a lot, because Spanish is not my, English is not my first language. B, I don't have tons of years of experience of kayak bass fishing, and I don't presume to have. I just be like, if you ever seen like Inside the NBA, those guys, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kenny the Jet Smith, and then you see Ernie, he's just like, he doesn't know, he doesn't play basketball. He has these guys to talk about, basketball. He's just there to kind of steer the conversation and ask the questions. And that's what I do. I don't pretend to know everything about kayak fishing. I just have my guests and steer the conversation to where I think it's relevant to my guests, and it's going to be attractive to the listeners. And just recently, Jeremy McCormick posted on Instagram out of nowhere. I didn't know he was going to post that, and tagged me, saying that I'm one of the reasons he is where he is now, as far as, upping his game and enjoying it more, not because of me, because he listened to my podcast. So really, it's a testament to my guest. And maybe I do ask the right questions. I've had Jim Eagle just met me on the water, and I just said hi. He's just like, oh yeah, I know you. You're Armando from Bass, Kayak, and Beers. I listen to your podcast. Thank you for what you're doing. So that drives me. And all I want to do is for people to enjoy it. I don't have my name on my podcast. Same as, the Real One Objective, and Bass and Brews. It's not about me. I don't have an ego. It's about uplifting the kayak fishing community, helping. And I told Eric Siddiqui today, when I do the podcast and I review tournaments, if it's just a little bit of small grain of sand in a big hill that is helping you make a living out of what you do, I love doing with kayak fishing, then I'm all for that. I will play my role and be that little grain of sand in this big hill that keeps growing and helping the kayak fishing community and the tournament anglers make a living out of it, if that's what they wish to do. Some of it has to do with accountability. And I am one that I'm respectful. I don't curse. I'm not going to judge people's characters unless they're cheating. But if I don't like what's going on with something, I'll say it, and I'll say it with respect. If I don't like it, I've gotten flack for what my criticism Bassmaster Kayak Series. My point of view is you need to do a better job. We need Bassmaster Kayak Series. We want you to be successful, but we're not going to pat you on the back and say you're doing a good job when you're done. Now I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just give you an explanation of what it is. Same thing with anything. there's levels to this. You want to encourage, but at the same time, you want to hold people accountable when they need to do a better job, because it could grow. This is an amazing sport, an amazing community, and it can grow and it can get better. And I want to do my part in it and be responsible with it. And that's basically, to me, my goal is to help this grow into whatever it is that it can become.
Awesome. And Dan, what about you? What's your target?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of, with our show, because it's a tournament show, for me, it's not like I want it to continue to be the size it is, because, I mean, kayak fishing's growing, so it'll grow probably proportional to it. But our show, if we don't focus on the grassroots guys, if we don't focus on some of the national guys sometimes, then, it's like we can have bigger people on our show, and then we would grow, but that's not what our show is. So I think our show is it's always going to be the size it is. So I don't know if growing it's, I would have to have different guests on to try to grow it, I think. And for me, I want to give the grassroots guys as much, because that's just what our show is. Y'all's show is different, so. But for me, just personally, I want to connect, like I said, I want to connect more with the anglers and try to grow more relationships from that. But the show, I kind of like where it's at right now. And I feel like if we change it too much, then it'll turn into something different. And that's it would take away the shine that we're able to give to some of the anglers. So it's going to be what it's going to be.
All right. And now, Paul, whenever you asked me this question on your podcast, I ended up the chaplain of our kayak club. So I'm interested to see what happens whenever I ask you this question. What is your target? What are you aiming for?
For us is right now to continue what we're doing, and it goes back to just picking people out in the fishing industry that we're interested in, that we think we could have a great conversation with, that listeners will be interested in. And we've had folks on the podcast like Armando and Dan from Paddle and Fin, Bailey Serious Angler, Matt Pangrack from Bass Talk Live. We've had folks like that on, but we've also had folks on that have 200 Instagram followers, or 800, 1,000 YouTube subscribers, and they have a story to tell. And if we can help them get some more subscribers or followers for whatever they want to do for their channels and what they're doing, that's at this point in time what we're looking to do. And for us is to continue to have a good time and finding interesting people to talk to have a story to tell and getting that story out there. Alex retires towards the end of this year. I think we'll probably change in what some of our goals are with the podcast. Mainly, I don't have to pay for personally my own merchandise. I like not have to pay retail price for my own shirt. Something like that's a goal to have. But in general, we're in a holding pattern because we got a transition pattern coming up when Alex gets done, because he really does everything on the back end. All the stuff that y'all see is Alex. When he wasn't here, we recorded a podcast. I put out a lot of stuff on Instagram, but it was not flary and flashy and all that. He does all that stuff. So I think we're going to probably have some stuff come up towards the end of the year. But right now it's just finding interesting people to tell their story and give them a platform to tell it if they want to.
For sure. So we've kind of covered everything that I had for the podcast, but did anybody have any kind of thing that they needed to add that, like, I had a feeling?
Josh, man, we ain't never met, but I wish y'all put out more podcasts.
That already beat you to that.
Look, yes, I missed 33 minutes of this podcast and got on here late. I got to say my piece. Man, every time I do a lot of driving and listen to a lot of podcasts, I don't pay attention when they come out. I don't do a lot of live stuff because I drive so much. I want to listen. All the ones I like, I want to listen to. Yeah. And so I never know when y'all's comes out, but when I see it up there, I'm like, when I see it, I'm like, 8:00 in the morning, this one's first. It's like once a month. I'm like, man.
Yeah. I know.
Teasers, bunch of teasers.
We had a goal going into January. Me and Chris and James, and we talked, and we're like, I want to get back to our Sunday night shows. I want to start doing these Sunday night shows, and then we got into the tournament side, and when we got in and we went to Lake Fork, and then Toledo Bend back to back for bass and Hobie. We come back and was able to do a little bit of a show, and kind of talk about it. And then all intentions were to actually pull back and just fish all Hobie stuff while we were doing good in points. James was third in points. He moved to fifth after we fished Florida, I think it was. I moved to eighth in points, so now we're like, now we got to fish more bass stuff, because we're doing really well. And but then the business took a turn for the good. Mm-hmm. With just product. And it just got to a point, man, we were working nonstop. And I was like, when I come home, I needed family time. I just wasn't getting it, And when my little daughter wanted me to lay with her at night before she went to bed, you know what I mean? Like, like, I got to do it. So, and I look at it like this, my son today, he just turned 13 today, So it's eventually going to be a point where these kids ain't going to be around with me that much as, they're going to be like, Dad, I want to hang out with my friends, or I want to do this. So I'm kind of like, eventually I'll be old and I'll have more time to do this, So, but
I'll be Armando.
Yeah.
Old and all the time we can handle.
But yeah, we're going to have more coming. I think just once we get past these next 2 weeks, we got a big Hobie product line that we're releasing, and we got some Old Town stuff. And
say what? Hobie what?
Yeah, we got some Hobie stuff, Old Town, and then possibly working in a few other product lines. And then we got iCast and all that stuff coming up. So it's just so much going on. Like, we're just trying to work everything in, but it's going to happen again. We're going to get back on a regular schedule. It's just, we didn't even be able to keep up with our YouTube schedule. Our plan was to do a Tuesday and Thursday. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll have a YouTube video.
Well, I got an easy proposition for you, Josh. You can sponsor my podcast with your Hobie products, and I will use the One Objective banner, and that's it. I'll take care of the podcast, and you can sponsor me, and I can get all the Hobie goodies.
While you're giving out podcast sponsorships, I got a Hobie PA-14, and we'll pass it. Don't listen to Alex. He's in some kind of other fake pedal boat. But Bass and Brews will hop in since you're giving them out. Yeah. I'll take one. I'm in North Carolina too, so I'm right down the road. You can hand me mine in person.
Yeah,
I'll buy you lunch.
Yeah, no, it's I do appreciate it that you guys actually listen to our podcast. That does mean a lot, because it gets to a point in time, and I don't know if you ever guys feel like this, that sometimes that you don't get the credibility that you think. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Have you ever got that point where you're like, man, I'm really turning out some good content, and I see everybody else out there, and they're like, I got this sponsor, and this, and I'm like, man, we get so much credibility. Like, so many people enjoy our show and this and that, but we're not sponsor hunters. We don't go looking for it. To be honest with you, this year we actually turned down every single sponsor we had. We dropped every single one of them, and because we wanted to be real with our listeners, we wanted to be real on our YouTube channel, and so we just dropped all of them. We don't do none no more. It's all us, and we can be real. We can use whatever we want to use when it comes to tackle, when it comes to whatever. You know what I mean? So,
Falcon Rods, come holler at your boy. If Josh don't want you, I'll take you, baby. Come on. I love them carrots. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, we dropped it all, man. And it was tough. I was like, are we making the right decision? But I think after the whole fiasco with Big Adventures and all that fell through, We were just kind of done.
I hate they did y'all like that, man. That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's business, I guess. You know what I mean? You got to kind of look at their side. I don't know. I hate to look at it that side. It makes you mad. But it opened another door for us, and it really pushed us in the Hobie side, and it pushed us to get out there and do more tournaments and all that stuff. So it was a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? That's how all this stuff works. But yeah, I do appreciate all you guys listening to our stuff. I'm gonna stop rambling. I could talk all night. So
so can I. But you said that. I tell people all the time, if we had one listener on Bass and Brews Podcast, I don't care. I'd still record it.
Yeah.
Because the interactions that we get to have are self-fulfilling for Alex and I. I mean, we get to talk to people about fishing from all over the country. And so, it's a release for me. And some days, there are days I sit down here at 7:45. I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired. I don't feel good or whatever it is. 3 hours later, I'm like, man, let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
When you get off, you got like that adrenaline pumping. You're ready. You can't even go to sleep. You know what I mean?
I know. And then you spend another hour or two in the green room talking afterwards. It is like that. Or I send the Hookset Hoodlum group chat a phone call at 1:00 in the morning, and people answer. I mean, it's great. This is how fishermen are. They're crazy. They have no sense, and they don't sleep apparently. But there's something to say about what we do and why we like to do it. And let's be real, nobody's going to become a millionaire in the next few years doing a kayak or bass fishing podcast. Mm-hmm. So, we do it because we enjoy it, and we like the people we get to meet and talk to. That's an avenue for that. But we're also helping other people get their story out there. And everybody in this room, I would say, is big on that because I listen to all y'all's podcasts. So, I think that's the driving force behind most of our podcasts is we enjoy the conversation, and we enjoy somebody else listening to that conversation.
Exactly right. Very well put.
And kind of touching a little bit about what Josh said, not that that's specific what Josh said, but I've recently experienced the other day. I had a really hard time. Here we go. A really hard time trying to put out contents in the Instagram. So I made a couple of 2 months ago. I was trying to look at footage. I hadn't caught any bass. I was fishing a hard lake just so I can, get better at this. And so I put in a reel of me skipping under a dock, which I was kind of proud of. Like, man, that skip came out nice. The footage is horrible. And it's literally 5 seconds with the sound effect and everything. But I just figured I need to put something on Instagram because, the algorithms, whatever. And that's a big way to promote your podcast. So, and I even put it, that I wasn't gloating on it. It was just felt nice to finally get after hours of doing this, and getting bird's nest and all that. So it was kind of like a humble caption, I'm not gloating, just saying, hey, this takes hours. So this is a small victory for me. And I don't know why, because I don't understand algorithms. That thing is close to 1 million views. I don't know why. Because it's not like I post, and that's funny what Josh said. It's like sometimes you don't get credit. Sometimes, I'll put what I think it's a killer video of me setting the hook and landing a big bass. It'll get 3 views. I put a stupid 5-second video of me casting a dog, and it gets 1 million views, and everybody loves it. And then everybody start commenting on it, and I was all proud of myself. And I finally experienced what tried and true, that you are being successful. And that is my first troller. For some reason, somebody saw that a reel. It filled him with rage that video got 1 million views and thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, that it filled him with rage that he felt the need to insult me through the comment section. And I just laughed. I blocked him because I don't need this guy follow me. So I blocked him, erased him from my life. Because really, when you have to deal with trollers. You just erase them, and all of a sudden that people vanishes completely from your life.
Yeah,
I engage them with love. Look, you should see. I save them all. You should see. I don't get a lot of trollers, but the spammers, I engage them with love, and then just the craziest shit they've ever heard.
It's hilarious, but it's validation for me. So, like, I finally made it. I'm being successful. I have my first troller.
Well, you made it when somebody accused you of promoting getting drunk and stuff.
Oh, that was on the Paddle and Fin page. Somebody's promoting getting drunk on, and I'm like, it's just Bass. From since then, I put now at the end of my podcast,
you have to put a disclaimer.
I put in a disclaimer so people don't think I'm promoting alcoholism. It's stupid.
And when I had Armando on, I was like, on Bass and Brews, we promote drinking with Armando Sola. I'm just kidding. We didn't do that.
It's funny though, but yeah. So you get to, right. And I'm sure Josh, you've gotten to deal with haters as well with the popularity of one object and all that. So
yeah,
it just fuels me, in my opinion. I don't know about you or about Dan. I know Dan had a really particular
Justin Rotten.
Oh my God. That is, I don't know how long, Cam, you want to go on this, but that is an interesting story.
Yeah, just a guy, Justin Rotten. He's a local guy, and he has some, he has some real issues, and I had to go all the way to his wife and say,
oh shit,
your husband's burner accounts.
Well, I didn't know that.
Look, we don't live too far away. I'm gonna show up at your house because I'm not going to let him troll me all over the internet with his burner accounts and just not think I'm going to do something. I mean, I know I can find out where you live, bud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I tell you, man, like, when we come out with our first product line and we call crap from Kevin Dismute, and actually not from him, but from his fans, you know what I mean, of his products and
groupies.
Yeah. I mean, man, it was like a cult following. It really was. And I'm not trying to like knock none of them guys or nothing like that. But I mean, the stuff that we got, man, was, I got people that wanted to inflict harm on me over that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and one objective almost didn't exist after that. Like, I was about done. I was like, I'm not doing this. And you finally, you sit back and you're like, this is not worth it. I'm letting somebody ruin my fun over something so stupid. So
same lesson I went through with the podcast,
Yeah. You just got to learn to cut it, get thick skin, say whatever, dude, and just keep on trucking. That's all you can do now.
I was actually talking to a content creator that was struggling with the haters. Like and I told them, and I've learned this life, and I told them, listen, when you got haters, that means you're being successful. Think about it this way. Nobody hates the Cleveland Browns, but everybody outside of New England hates the Patriots.
That's true, though.
Because the Cleveland Browns, and I apologize to anybody's from Cleveland. I'm not trying to insult you, but the reality is...
You just insulted your last guest.
No, he's Cincinnati Bengals.
Same thing.
So, no. Oh, now you insulted him. Now you really insulted him. But it's like, they're not relevant. Somebody hates it. Now, New England wins everything. We used to win everything, but they had Tom Brady. So everybody that's out in England hates it. When people hate you, it's because you're doing something right. Yeah. Or maybe something completely wrong. But, when they hate your success, it's because you're doing something right. Because you're relevant. Yeah.
I feel bad. I don't have any haters or trollers yet.
It's coming.
I'll write mean stuff. I'll put a burner account and write mean stuff if you want.
I haven't had a true hater. I don't think Alex might have dealt with them on his side, but we haven't either. I mean, I guess it is what it is. I would love to have that interaction though, again, because I just a bunch of craziness and love. I'd give them hugs and tell them I would like to give them hugs, and apparently they didn't get enough hugs, so they should need some hugs.
Yeah. I think the biggest hater, you get it on YouTube. We don't get too much on our podcast. I think the funniest one was when somebody wrote on our iTunes account that I was egotistical, rude to my guests. And it was, I keep it on there. I could report it and take it down, but I leave it there because I'm like, this is hilarious. So, that was probably by far the worst one, but for the podcast, we get them on the YouTube stuff, but you get called idiots, you get called this or that for something we do, but I think it's funny. A lot of times I'll just put a laughing emoji with it or whatever.
If I was to read that, I'd be like, damn, I got to listen to this podcast.
Well, that's what Josh Smith did. You remember Josh Smith asked everybody to write the crappiest review on his podcast. Give him 5 stars, but and he did. And I enjoyed it, man. I built Bernard's account just so I can air out my I was like, I'll help you. But that was masterclass on him, man. It was fun.
Yeah. Speaking of him, I know I've been following him. He does karate. Like, he's gotten big into that. Like, is he not going to do a podcast anymore? Like, is he?
He came out with a post about 3 weeks ago saying that he's coming back, but I haven't seen him. Now it's my favorite to message him and insult him, tell him to book his big boy pants on like he did.
He's rolling around with a bunch of guys. Come on.
Oh man.
Okay.
I'm kidding, Josh. I'm not messing with anybody.
He's gonna kick your ass.
Yeah, he can kick your ass now.
Oh yeah, for real. It had me locked up on an arm bar. I don't know.
This is what you should do, Cap. Just edit that part out. Edit that part in and put it in a reel on Instagram and tag him. This is what Dan Perry just said.
Don't do that. He knows I love him.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're gonna be respectful of everybody's time. We're gonna start winding things down.
Whoa. We ain't respectful of time until after 2.5 hours. Ain't that right, Dan?
Hey, man, I had to go. I'm sorry.
Look, we got the end of our episode, and we're all in the green room. Everybody's having Dan's like, look, guys, I'm going to interrupt y'all because I got to go.
It's an NFL draft, man. And Saints had 2 first-round picks. I had to check out, man.
Believe it or not, I was shortly after you. I had to roll, too.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you've talked about the goals that you're shooting towards, but what's coming up next for you guys? Jab or hammer? Let's start with you.
We're putting out an episode a week. Alex has a little bit extra time here and there, except for this week, and then next week he's had duty, so it's just me and some other folks. We're putting out our episodes once a week. They drop on Fridays. I think we're going to sprinkle in some lives. And when he gets back, I think we're going to probably head towards something twice a week with maybe some kind of live event. I don't know exactly, but I think we're going to try to do something like that. And it'll be not necessarily like the interview that we do, the long form, be a little bit shorter, but it kind of be open forum where we bring people in and out for an hour or so and just talk about a topic. But yeah, nothing too exciting. We won't know until Alex does his tour, finally retires and gets back over here and takes the train wreck that I create again while he's gone and puts it back on the tracks. And hopefully all the box cars aren't on fire and melted.
What about you, Dan?
Nothing new. Just keeping the train rolling.
Armando?
I started doing the YouTube thing, and I quickly realized it's really saturated, even for kayak bass fishing. So what I did, Spanish is my first language, and I just came out with the first episode of kind of like paddle and fin in Spanish. Literally translated, it's paddle and fin in Spanish. It's remos y aletas. And I'm going to start doing YouTube, and it's going to be the first episode came out. It's going to be 2 series episode. One, it's going to be kind of like adventures on the water. It just me being on the water and trying to catch bass or whatever it is that I'm fishing for. I'll try to do different bodies of water for different species. It just be entertaining for those that don't speak Spanish. I gone through the trouble of adding the captions, and if you don't pay for them and you're doing yourself, that's another 3 hours of your life. So if anybody is interested, and even if you don't speak Spanish, you can hit the closed caption on your settings, and you can read the subtitles in English. Then there's going to be another series where it's going to be like kind of like the Fluke Master. So you can call me El Fluke Maestro. That's just joking, but it's going to be It's going to
That's
be
good.
like tips
That
and
might be
tricks.
one of the funniest things you've ever said. That is good. The Fluke Maestro.
It's going to be kind of like tips and tricks. And I really wanted to do that, even though that's not something that I really crave doing. But I wanted to give something back to the Spanish-speaking community. That was my first language. Grew up in Puerto Rico, lived there for most of my life. And I've seen how the sport is growing in not just Puerto Rico, Mexico, and a lot of Latin America or Spanish-speaking countries. But there's really not, there's just the guys that kind of do the whole Guggen squad thing, which is nothing wrong with it. They want to do the highlight reels of them fishing out on the water. That's again, nothing wrong with it. I'm doing the same thing. But I've yet to find a channel that really goes down into tips and trick and really helping out. I remember when I started kayak fishing, I had to watch like 10 different episodes to kind of explain to me what was the difference between moderate, heavy, and fast action and moderate action. I just couldn't get it. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Now it's kind of like, how did I not understand this from the beginning? But I know there's a lot of people out there, especially, that bass fishing is just blowing up right now because it never was a thing before. Now it is, especially kayak fishing, and they really don't have a direction of where to find advice on what you should buy, what you should not buy, what should you be using and what should not be using. So I kind of want to get something back to the community that is interested in kayak bass fishing or kayak fishing in general, but don't have the resources that we do in the United States, or English speaking language.
Dude, the Guggens are so much bigger than Fluke. You should have went Il
I'm old.
Or something.
I'm closer to Gene Jensen age than I am to John B. So
El Guggenero. There you go.
Guggenero.
Los
That's
Guggenero.
racist, man. Now kidding.
What do you finish? What do you have for you?
El Guapo.
Like the Three Amigos movie. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, you call me? No,
I mean, whoever it was. Yep.
Like I said earlier, we want to reach out more to the new guys coming in, the new people coming into kayak fishing, bass fishing, the do's and don'ts. Like we just did a video on weight distribution. To be quite honest with you, I never even thought that video was really going to be that great. Like I just went over with a lot of questions that we got through the months on rigging kayaks, and Kayak Fishing Magazine, I think it was, shared it. Several other sites shared this video, and I was like, man, I told Janice, I think we really hit on something when you look back at our videos, that a lot of our basic videos on, bow versus stern, which motor to pick or which way to rig, or, so I think we really need to get back into that. I mean, I still like doing the fishing side and going out there and just shooting, while we're fishing tournaments and having the clips and all that, but to really reach out there to people. And like you said, like Armando said, with the community being saturated, it is, but you got to find your niche. You know what I mean? Like you really got to find what you want to do and do a lot of it. I mean, it's kind of like the gaming industry when it comes to YouTube. It's saturated. It is super saturated with people doing live gaming on YouTube, Twitch, all that stuff. But there's guys that still make it, that just start new and make it. They find their niche, they find their personality into this, and people really like it, and they grow with it. So, but on the YouTube side, I think that's what we want to do. We really want to grow back into getting these new people into the sport. Because when you get these new people into the sport, these guys are going to start listening to our podcast. You know what I mean? Like they're going to want to learn more. They're going to start, because we all know bass fishing's addicting. Like it's a drug. It really is. And so I think if we can get these kids and we can get new people in, there's a lot of guys that's coming out of bass boats. Gas prices are through the roof right now. You can't get bass boats, certain models and stuff like that. It's so hard to get stuff. So I think that if we can reach out to these people that are just coming into the sport, that's where we want to be at. We want to be helping these new people coming in. Sounds like the podcast, I mean, just from what I've heard from everybody tonight, that we probably need to start doing more podcasts and get back on a regular schedule to have something for you guys to listen to. But that's something we need to work on. It's just getting our schedule back, getting into a regular schedule with podcasting. We really love doing it. It's just been tough. tough to do it. Maybe we need to change up our time that we do them. Maybe we don't do them on Sunday nights. We do them middle of the week, like when my kids go to bed. I come down here and do a podcast. Maybe that's something we work into. So, but
that's what I do.
Yeah. So, I think that's what we're going to change. But like I say, YouTube stuff is top priority here lately, and like I say, our shows go on YouTube anyway. So, we just really want to reach out to the new people coming into the sport.
Awesome. I want to give everybody, a chance to share sponsors, supporters, anybody you want to say thank you to, plug your social media, YouTube stuff, all that good stuff. Where do people find you? So, Josh, how about you?
OneObjectiveBF.com. That's our website. Same thing with Instagram, YouTube, all that. One Objective Bass Fishing. Sponsor wise, I want to thank One Objective. that's who sponsors us, is One Objective. And our families that support us with this, because we put a lot of time in it, and if it wasn't for a good wife and kids, same thing with James. If he was here, he'd say the same thing. If it wasn't for his wife and kids, for us to have amazing jobs, making good money, to quit, to say we're going to make kayak accessories and do YouTube and all that stuff, for them to believe in us and support us with it, man, that takes a strong woman right there to be able to support you and stick with you through that, especially when you got a couple months with no paychecks, you know what I mean? Because you're getting everything straight. So, and I just want to thank all of our listeners and followers, subscribers, all that stuff. That's the main thing. So thank y'all.
Awesome. Dan, what about you?
Just the podcast, Paddle and Fin, Reel Down Wednesdays. It comes out. Besides that, X Zone back here in the back if you're watching. Biano Power, Gadget, and Summerland Outdoors. If you need a kayak, right now they have 700 of them, and they're having a sale this weekend. If you're listening, they ship anywhere in the country, Hobie, Old Town, and Jackson. They don't have a Nora, though, so don't call them and ask them for a Nora. They don't have them. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks to you, Cam. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Armando?
Douglas Outdoors, they're the only sponsor that I have, so big thanks to them. They're amazing rods, and I say it not because they're my sponsor. I've always said if I ever have a sponsor, it's going to be a company that I trust what they're doing, and I love their product, something that I would buy regardless if I was sponsored by them or not. So, and I really believe Douglas Rods, it is one of the best rods out there. Their X-Matrix lineup, once I set the hook, very, very few times have I ever complained about the fish coming off, which you said when I was on a budget starting off, that would happen regularly. So go check them out, douglasoutdoors.com. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the quality that they bring. Oh, and if they want to follow me, Bass, Kayak, and Beers in Instagram, Remos y Aletas in Spanish. If you want to follow the Spanish Instagram, YouTube, Remos y Aletas as well. My podcast comes out every Tuesday on Paddle and Fin. So if you're looking for the podcast, if you're on Instagram, you can hit the link on my bio. Otherwise, just whatever platform you use, just search for Paddle and Fin. We have an episode every single day of the week, different episode. Mine happens to air on Tuesday. Depending on, I don't know where this podcast is going to air, but right now I just recorded with Cayman Rasmussen, and that should be coming up this week. And after that, it's going to be Gary Sadiq, which I just recorded with today. So, go check it out if you want to. If you all like all that kayak bass fishing talk.
Cayman, the best name in kayak fishing.
I know, right?
Cayman Rasmussen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kid can fish. Too.
Oh, Rasmussen. By the way, I said that wrong.
Oh, it's all right.
I butcher names all the time.
Yeah,
Paul, what about you, man?
Hookset Hoodlums, check them out. Spring line apparel is out. Outside of that, that's it. Bass and Brews Podcast. YouTube, we just started a Bass and Brews YouTube. The old stuff and currently swamp rat fishing, the stuff's being put on Facebook, all that good stuff. I'm Paulheels, 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 just like Tar Heels on YouTube. Go follow me there. I haven't had a lot of fishing going on the last about 5-6 weeks and a lot of other stuff. So I haven't posted a lot, but I also suck at fishing in the springtime for whatever reason when everybody else catches them. But summertime's rolling around, so I start cranking again. Maybe I'll get some stuff out there. That's it. Pretty simple. We just out there plugging along, having a good time. And we appreciate you come listening to us and, have an open mind. That's all I got to say.
Awesome. Well, thank all of y'all so much for coming on the show. It means a lot.
Thank you, Cam.
Do that.
Yeah, thank you, Cam.
Appreciate it, Cam.
Had a blast.
Yeah, had a good time, man. And Cam, I've really enjoyed your show too, man. We haven't said that much on here, but you've come a long ways with your podcast. You're doing a good job, so keep up the good work, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
It really is. It really is something. And it's, you found your niche and you should be proud of it.
Yeah.
Well, that is a phenomenal place to end.
Go before Paul say something.
Outhouse, based out of Charleston, South Carolina, is an eyewear accessory and gear company focused on enhancing your time on the water. Their floating sunglass retainers are the most technically advanced around. Over 5 years of engineering, testing, and exhaustive feedback from paddlers, anglers, and watermen have resulted in a patented design in a class of its own. They're incredibly light and comfortable, built for durability, sport a sleek, minimal design, float virtually all brands and models of sunglasses, and they're backed for life. So if you break them, Outhouse will replace them. No questions asked. Whether you're fishing, kayaking, or boating, Outhouse will save your shades from the dream. Head on over to atollas.co to check out their gear and use promo code faithnfish15. That's faith, the letter N, fish, the number 1, 5 at checkout to save 15% on your order. Another huge thank you to Josh from One Objective, Armando from Bass, Kayak, and Beers, Paul from Bass and Brews, and Dan from The Reel Down for coming on the show and having an awesome conversation with me. I'll leave all of their links in the show notes as well as links to Outhouse Tackle so you can find them. Again, their website shop is still under construction, but you can find them there. And I'll have the All Things Faith and Fishing link in the show notes too, which has all of the sponsor links, social media, so give us a follow, YouTube where you can watch all the interviews, and Patreon where you can watch them early. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by me, Cam Steele, and is sponsored by Jade's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Savior Outdoors, Outhouse, and Mr. B Lure Company. Be sure to give us a rating and a review and to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless.